Assalamualaikum and very good morning to all my fellow friends and also our lecturer, Madam Mastura. I am Fakrezi bin Jamaluddin from Group BA 1183A, and today I would like to give a speech to inform all of you the mystery about the death of Alexander the Great. I believe some of you may have not know about him. Alexander III of Macedonia, which commonly known as Alexander the Great, was the king of the ancient Greek kingdom of Macedonia and also a member of the Argead dynasty. In the end of his life, there is no one knows what was the factor of his death. Some people has assumed that he died because of typhoid disease, alcohol poisoning, and one new theory from studies which is Guillain-Barré syndrome. In today's speech, we will go through one by one with the assumption of his death that people have assumed before. So without wasting no much time, let's move to the first assumption. At first, during the ancient time, some people or doctor defined that the death of Alexander the Great was caused by disease of typhoid. For your information, typhoid is a bacterial infection that can spread throughout our body and affect most of our organs. This disease is actually caused by a bacterium called Salmonella typhi, which is related to the bacteria that cause Salmonella food poisoning. They assume that this is the cause of his death because on that time, typhoid fever was a rampant disease in the ancient Babylon. That was the most reason why people during that time assumed that the death of Alexander the Great was caused by typhoid. That is the first assumption that made by people in the ancient time. So let's go through with the second one. In the meantime, there are also an assumption that Alexander the Great died because he had been poisoned by some of his rivals. Whether we believe it or not, the assumption look quite acceptable and makes sense too. It is because during that time, Alexander the Great has conquered many empires and has become one of the biggest name during the ancient time. So he probably might have one or more rivals that feels envy towards Alexander the Great. In the new theory, some scientists have made a research about type of poison that have killed him. After observing several poisonous plants, they suggested that the most likely toxin was white hellebore, which is the flowering herb that is quite common in Europe. It affects the central nervous systems, shutting down the molecular channels that nerve cells use to communicate. This poison might have matched with the symptoms of his death. Since you all have know the two assumptions of Alexander the Great death, so let's go through with the last one. Lastly, a scholar have made a new theory regarding the death of Alexander the Great. He suggested that Alexander the Great may have suffered from the neurological disorder, which is Guillain-Barré syndrome, which has caused his death. In the meantime, a senior lecturer at the Dunedin School of Medicine from University of Otago in New Zealand writes in an article which said that the most other theories of what killed Alexander the Great have caused on the agonizing fever and abdominal pain that he suffered in the days before he died, which means the death of Alexander the Great has strongly linked by the effect of disease. The senior lecturer, which easily can be known as Hall, argues that Guillain-Barré syndrome is a rare but serious autoimmune disorder in which the immune system attacks healthy cells in the nervous system, would be able to explain the combination of symptoms better than the other theories advanced for Alexander the Great's death. Other than that, she assumed that while Alexander the Great suffering the illness, his body can work well, which his breath might stop, although he is not totally dead. She said that the increasing paralysis that Alexander the Great suffered has caused his breath to be less visible. That's why she argues that people might not have noticed any immediate signs of decomposition on the body for one simple reason, which is because Alexander the Great wasn't dead yet. But until now, none of us, including the scientists, managed to make a confirmation about how did Alexander the Great has died. It remained as a mystery until nowadays. On your opinion, what is your assumption about his death? Did he really die because of illness, or maybe he have been poisoned? I hope we will know the truth sooner or later. In conclusion, we observe that the assumption of the death are because of the new theory, which is Guillain-Barré syndrome, poison in the alcohol that he drank, and also by the disease of typhoid. I think that's all from me. Thank you for listening and have a great day. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
There's not much to do when all I